Hey everyone, welcome to the Web Developer Bootcamp 2.0, the only course you need to learn web development, at least according to my slides. Now I know that claim sounds like something out of a late night infomercial, but this course does have a long proven track record of helping people become developers. That is very different, however, from claiming to teach every single topic, language, framework under the sun. That is not the goal of this course. The goal is to teach you everything you need to become a developer so that you can continue to learn and pick up new languages and frameworks as they go in and out of style. Okay, so I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Colt. Colt Steele. I'm an in-person bootcamp instructor. I also have an online bootcamp, and then I teach on Udemy. I have a YouTube channel where I teach people how to code, and then, believe it or not, I actually have interests outside of that, including, but not limited to, gardening, photography, playing in a band, and raising my flock of chickens. So now that you know every detail of my personal life, let's talk a bit about my professional life. And I only bring this up because it's relevant to this course. My entire career so far has been based around helping people become web developers, helping people learn to code. I've been an instructor, a lead instructor, a director of curriculum for multiple boot camps, including Galvanize, Rhythm School. My curriculum continues to be used around the country at multiple campuses. And I've also created courses for Udacity, not to mention my courses on Udemy, including the one you're looking at right now. So I bring all of this up, not just to toot my own horn, I promise, but because this course is based directly on my experience teaching students in person. Now bear with me for a second, this is going to seem a little bit braggy, but it is relevant. So here are some numbers. Of my in-person bootcamp graduates, 94% of them find jobs within 6 months, developer jobs, of course. And the median salary of those graduates is $115,000. My graduates work at companies ranging from tiny startups that they've founded all the way up to tech giants like Amazon, Google, Apple, Salesforce, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and so on. But what really matters here is that this course is based directly on my experience teaching and crafting the curriculum that I've used to help my in-person students get jobs. This is what I spend all my time doing and thinking about and dreaming about, sometimes having nightmares about. Remember that, if my in-person students don't get jobs, I lose my job. The last thing that I'll mention in this video is that, for me, what's most important, obviously it's important to help students get jobs, but what's most important for my students is that they leave my courses being able to grow as developers and learn new technologies and new libraries. Just as an example, here's a subset of some of the tools that my last crop of graduates are now working with just a little while after graduating. So I didn't teach my students Ruby, Java, C#, Angular, Vue, just to name a couple. But they are working with those technologies, they're learning them, and they're confident to take on, whatever else they're expected to learn in their new roles. So that's a real sign of success, and that's my main goal with all of my courses, online or in person, a fancy $20,000 boot camp, or a relatively affordable Udemy course. The goal is always to help students become real web developers that aren't just dependent on, the 4 or 5 technologies I teach in my course, but instead can add on a whole bunch of new skills as needed. And that's exactly what this course offers. Okay, so that was a lot of talking about mainly myself. I apologize. Next up, I'm going to dive deeper into the curriculum if you'd like to know exactly what this course covers and in what order. Then we'll talk about whether you can get a job with this course and some tips and advice for succeeding. And I'm going to stop talking now. Welcome to the course if you are enrolled. And if you're just browsing, well, hello there. I hope you're doing great. All right, so let's talk about the curriculum and what this course covers. This course is quite large, both in terms of hours, but also just in terms of the number of topics we cover. But they're all pretty essential, they all fit together, and it's all structured in a very deliberate way. So here's just a rundown of some of the key topics. The course covers a lot more than this, but these are some of the most important topics. So we start by understanding how the web works, the internet, getting our developer environment set up, and then we talk about HTML. And we start understanding the very basics, HTML5, all the latest in semantic HTML. We talk about accessibility. Then we move on to CSS and styling our web pages, where we learn a lot of new modern CSS. We cover things like flexbox and layouts, CSS animations, responsive design, media queries. We talk about CSS frameworks. I introduce different frameworks, including Bootstrap, another called Bulma. Then we talk about JavaScript. And this is really a big turning point in the course, where we spend a lot more time going very deep into JavaScript. For a lot of students, it's their very first time learning a programming language. So we cover all of the basics and all of the latest in JavaScript syntax. So if you've heard the terms like ES6, ES7, or ES 2016, 17, 18, all of that stuff is covered in this course. So let, const, arrow functions, async, await, promises, spread, destructuring. If none of that means anything to you, just ignore it. But we do cover that in this course. We also talk about DOM manipulation and how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript connect. We talk about asynchronous JavaScript, the pitfalls of async JS, but also the benefits potentially. We cover AJAX and making requests, working with third-party APIs. Then we start talking a bit about the backend. I introduce the terminal and different Unix commands. We talk about Node, a lot about Node and NPM. We work with a web framework called Express, and we start building servers and full web apps. We talk about templating and building RESTful APIs, routing, databases. We talk a bit about SQL versus NoSQL databases. We focus on MongoDB. We cover common security issues, cross-site scripting, SQL injection. We talk about deploying applications and working with cloud databases. I show you how to implement authentication from scratch. So we really dive into the concepts around cookies and sessions, hashing functions. We talk about password salting. And then we focus on some fancier features like adding geocoding and mapping, cluster maps. I should show you something on the screen right now so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. Image upload. So there's a lot in this course. And then there are topics like schema design and design patterns for JavaScript. We talk about, best practices as a developer, building a developer mindset, understanding how to get help, how to Google, how to research things and find answers to things you don't know. So it's exhausting just telling you all these topics. It's a lot. Now imagine having to record all of that. Oh, that was quite the undertaking. So maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by the volume of topics and maybe none of them make sense. Maybe you're very excited to get started. Either way, I promise, we start from the very, very beginning. You don't need to know anything coming into this other than, how to use your computer. With all that said, yes, this course covers lots of fancy modern technologies and tools and languages. But all that really matters, like the real takeaways from this course that I focus on the most, are learning how to learn new frameworks, languages, libraries, learning how to think like an engineer, learning how to ask questions or find answers to your questions online, how to unstuck yourself, how to build applications from scratch, and just how to become fluent in the world of web development. Those are the really important pieces of the curriculum. And unfortunately, those are the pieces that you can't pick up in a matter of 5 minutes or an hour of video. They really take the entire course to sink in. So that's a brief overview of the crazy curriculum for this course. This will be a quick video. I just want to talk about when this course was last updated and how you can find out what was changed and what the updates were. So on Udemy, sometimes it can be difficult to see, when a course was changed and specifically what was actually changed. Was it, a new section of content? Was something really overhauled? Or was it just a single link or a line of code? Or was something deleted, a single lecture? Those sort of things can count as updates. In this course, I've gone out of my way this time around to create a change log, which you can see below this lecture. You can view the document, and it's a record of what has been added and removed or updated in the course, and it makes it clear exactly when those changes happened. So take a look at that. I'm trying to be very transparent about it. I published the original version of this course with no expectations. I had no clue it was going to take off, and so many students would be interested. And I also didn't anticipate how much web development would change. So in the beginning, I spent a lot of time patching the course, making tiny changes, trying to fix issues as they popped up. But then eventually I realized I just needed to just suck it up and redo the entire course from scratch. So I hunkered down for 8-9 months straight, recording, editing, creating exercises and projects, and outlining the whole thing took almost a couple of weeks. And that brings us to 2.0, the new version of this course. If you're seeing this video at all, it's part of the 2.0 update. It's really not an update, it's a complete overhaul. I redid everything in the course, over 500 new videos. I think it's closer to 600 now, actually. I added in 80 plus coding exercises that are interactive in the browser, plus a bunch of quizzes and challenges, projects, little do-it-yourself activities, and then one very large project at the end that we build together. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is the entire course has been overhauled. I somehow came out on the other side still alive and in one piece. It was a monumental undertaking, but I'm really excited about it. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's better than ever. It's incorporated everything I learned the first time around, plus everything I've learned from teaching my bootcamps in person. So please enjoy, and remember, you can check out that changelog if you have any questions. Without a doubt, the most common question I get from brand new students or people who are considering this course is, if I take the course and finish it, will I get a job? Well, much like the beloved 2008 romantic comedy starring Ryan Reynolds, I tell those students, definitely, maybe. It really, really depends. Many students have gone on to get jobs from taking this course, but it's not at all guaranteed. Let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of an actual job-guaranteed bootcamp, like the bootcamps I teach in person. I have an online bootcamp that comes with a job guarantee, but remember, we're talking about $12,000 to $24,000, I guess $22,000 bootcamps. Why do people pay for them? What is there that costs that much? Well, the first bit's the curriculum, and this course is based upon my experience teaching in-person boot camps. So you've got the curriculum. This covers everything you need to know to go on to learn and become a web developer. But that's just one facet. The other pieces of a bootcamp are a little bit trickier. Things like mentorship or being part of a community, a group of peers who can lean on each other and, stay up late studying and call each other panicked before the quiz tomorrow. Alongside that, accountability is a huge piece. In my boot camps, both the part-time online job guaranteed boot camp and the full-time in-person boot camp, what a mouthful, we assess students all the time. We have quizzes, we have planned quizzes, pop quizzes, we review their code and projects, we enforce, people have to come to class, they can't just keep skipping class and still just expect to get a job. So accountability plays a huge role in the decision to attend a boot camp. Now, with all that doom and gloomy negativity around what a boot camp has to offer versus this course, keep in mind that many students have taken just this course. Many students cannot afford to take a full-time bootcamp. Obviously, they're very expensive. They're impractical, difficult for people to just quit their job for 6 months. And I hear from students every single day in my email or my LinkedIn or YouTube channel, students who have just gotten their first job or just got their first offer out of this course. So it is 100% possible. And I have some advice for how I would approach this course as a student to help you get the most out of it. The first thing, without a doubt, most important, do the work, do the exercises, do the quizzes. I can't enforce that you take the time to, fully build out the exercises when I ask you to, or to do the interactive coding exercises. I mean, I can't enforce anything. You're totally on your own, which is really, that whole accountability thing I mentioned with attending a boot camp. There's no accountability here. So try and add structure. Do the exercises, take it seriously. I mean, unless you're here for fun or just exploring things, you're your own person and I can't tell you what to do. But if I were in your shoes and I was trying to get a job, do every exercise. It's going to slow you down, but that's by design. The next piece of advice is don't just copy. What I mean by that is when I'm typing code and showing you solutions in this course, of which there are dozens, probably hundreds of different solutions, don't just open that up and copy the code, or don't just type exactly as I'm typing during the video. This is meant to be treated as a course. Just like, me watching a couple of Gordon Ramsay videos online does not make me a chef. I may have learned a little bit about cooking. I certainly learned something about cursing and how to create a television empire out of a fake grumpy persona when you're actually a lovable goofball. Oh, Gordon. Anyway, that's a piece of advice there, right? Can't become a chef by watching a YouTube video. You can't become a developer by watching my videos, right? You've got to do the work. You've got to stop, ask questions. This stuff takes practice. So that's the next piece of advice. After that, take your time, kind of retreading similar ground. The content here from an in-person bootcamp, we're talking about a minimum of 10 to 12 weeks of full-time teaching, lectures, exercises, projects, 40 hours plus a week, right? So we're talking about hundreds of hours to go through the course, even though the course itself is, it's probably longer now, but 50 something hours, close to 60 hours. So that is not the amount of time this course should take you. That should be the amount of time, I guess, that you are watching videos. You may rewatch things too, but there's a lot more that goes into learning this stuff. So slow down, focus on learning things. Don't copy, as I've already mentioned, or don't exclusively copy. But also don't panic, because this is a very huge course, and you're almost certainly going to hit a rough patch somewhere. All my in-person students do. Even the ones who come in, they've done all the work, the pre-work, they feel very confident, they're top of the class for the first couple of weeks. There's always something that derails pretty much everyone. So that's normal. Okay, this is a lot to learn, and if it was, incredibly easy and obvious to learn, I don't think I would have a career. That doesn't mean it's hard. It just means you may get stuck at some point. So don't panic. It's normal. And if you do get stuck, don't spin your wheels in the mud. Take a break. I'm serious about taking a break. It seems like a very obvious thing to say, but I have seen the results of students not taking breaks in person. Okay, enough advice. Really, the main thing I would say is just do the projects and exercises. Take the course seriously if you want to get a job. Treat it as you would a real course where you're getting a grade and you're magically being held accountable, even though I can't hold you accountable. Okay, next up, we need to talk about how you get the code for this course, and then we can begin the actual course. The last quick topic I want to mention before we actually start on the content of the course is how you can get the code, the resources, the downloads, everything you need for this course, and just how it's structured. So the course is broken up into a bunch of different sections, and each section is grouped around some concept or topic. In the very first video of every section includes a download link if there's any code. Some sections don't have code that you really need. Some of them are more conceptual. But if there is any code from that section, you'll find the zip file attached to the very first lecture. So download that. And then on top of that, the slides are available. If you're somebody who likes to have access to the slides, I can't imagine you actually want this deck of slides, but I've included them in the first video of the course if you do want this deck. But for the technical stuff, if you do want to reference the slides, they're always available. First lecture, just like the code, first lecture of the section. And then there are specific resources, links to different downloads or links to websites I mention, tools that I showcase, interesting fonts and code pens. All of those links are included whenever I mention them in the course. So, if there's a video where I talk about Google Fonts, attached to that, there will be a link, a resource to the Google Fonts website. So that's really how things are structured. In addition, that first video of every section plays a really important role. I know a lot of students don't have much patience for the non-technical content where we're not actually coding, but if you're someone who wants to take the course seriously and really try to get a job or try to get the most out of it, watch the first video of every section. I walk through the goals, but specifically I walk through what's easy, medium, and what's challenging in each section, and how much time a section should take you or could take you relative to others. For example, when we get to JavaScript, I talk about how, an hour of JavaScript videos is probably a lot longer than an hour of CSS videos. The videos obviously are the same. It's an hour of each. But the amount of work on your end may be significantly more when you're learning JavaScript for the first time. So pay attention to those videos. I set your expectations as best I can in the very first video of every section. Speaking of which, it's time for the next section. Check out the very first video. Here we go. I'll see you shortly. Well, I won't see you, but you'll hear me shortly. Goodbye. Okay, one really quick thing I want to mention are the new coding exercises in this course. I'll show you a couple of them. They're interactive, built into Udemy, and they're all brand new. There's a bunch of them. And there's a couple things I want to highlight. First of all, I'm recording this video before any of the coding exercises have gone live, but I know for sure there are going to be some small bugs or kinks that need to be worked out because, it's a lot of code I have to write to actually test your code and to give you feedback. So please be patient if you're watching this video. It's still very early days of the coding exercises. Second, the editor here, the actual interface for the coding exercises can get a little bit cluttered when I have my instructions up top. And you can resize some of this, but I also recommend going full screen. When some of the JavaScript stuff is really quick, like 10 seconds worth of an exercise. Some of the others are a bit longer. Some of them have multiple files. And, sometimes I'll call certain things out and say, please, don't touch this line, or put your code here, don't put your code here. Just try and, respect those instructions. Also, you may need to scroll down at times to actually see the entire set of instructions. Just as an example, let's see this one here. Okay, this is one here where, depending on your screen size, this could be hidden. So just make sure you scroll down to look at all of the instructions to have an understanding of what you're supposed to be doing. And then some of them are really short, like this is a JavaScript one. And I just am trying to be very clear. Don't touch any of this. Your job is to touch this and do something to make this code work. Now, of course, we haven't covered any of this content, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so I don't expect you to understand exactly what it is at this point. All I'm saying is, try and respect those pieces of the exercise. If you do end up deleting some of the code that you weren't supposed to touch, or, if you screw something up, like, your cat walks across the keyboard, okay? This code, you can actually see it's updating live over here. If at any point you need to reset, you can click reset your code, and it goes back to what it was before. And then also the feedback that you get, let me just show you, how it works. If you ever want to check your solution, I'm asking you to make this text look like this using CSS. It says, it should be styled in all caps. So, I could quickly update that. Again, we haven't learned any of this, but I can do something like text transform uppercase, and you can see it updates live. It's now all uppercase. And then I should get different feedback. It says it should be centered. So, I can then go do that. So that's kind of the workflow, I imagine. Or you can just do all of the work up front and then check your work here. But the feedback is supposed to be somewhat helpful. Sometimes you'll see some things that are a bit confusing, but buried in there should always be some feedback that I've written. Some of this is automatically generated by Udemy and the testing tools like this down here. It may not make a lot of sense to you, but this here hopefully explains what I'm expecting. Okay, so there's a lot of these exercises. They're sprinkled throughout the course, especially with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript stuff. The first couple are coming up early on in the HTML sections. Hopefully they're a nice addition, and good luck. Hey everyone, this video is actually not for everyone. It's specifically for students who took part of the course or completed the original version of this course prior to the complete overhaul, the brand new version I'm releasing today on October 12th, 2020. So if you are enrolling now, if you're a brand new student, skip this video. There's nothing here for you. Don't waste your time. But if you're somebody who, whether it was 2 weeks ago or 2 years ago, if you're somebody who started the course, made a couple of sections in, you finished half of it, or you completed the whole thing, check out this video for information on how to migrate over to the new version and what's important, what you've missed, what's changed, and all of that. So I've put a document together to help explain the differences. You can find it attached to this lecture. I'm calling it the Web Developer Bootcamp 2.0 Migration Guide. And it covers every section in the course, bullet points about what's changed, or whether things have changed at all. Some things really haven't changed. I mean, every video is new, so everything has changed technically. But as far as the concepts and topics covered, some sections are pretty similar. So I've color-coded things. Red, orange, where am I getting orange? Red, yellow, and green. Anything in green is the most similar to the original version of the course. That doesn't mean nothing has changed, but for example, if we take a look at the course intro, nothing critical has changed here. It's all new, and I've highlighted, I use new slides. There's a video called Intro to Coding Exercises, which you might want to check out, but nothing critical. But then when we get to HTML, the second section on HTML, which, by the way, the name of these sections will probably change, which is why I give you this live document that you can, keep open, so I can make changes as, students report things that they've noticed are different or gotchas that I should point out. So don't use this video as your guide. Use the actual document as your resource for figuring out what to focus on. Anyway, the HTML second section, covers some stuff that was not at all mentioned in the original course, so it's in red. Things like entity codes, semantic elements, accessibility, working with screen readers. We keep going down. If you see something in yellow, it means there are things worth your time to check out, but they're not critical new sections or brand new topics that didn't exist in the original course. Keep going, around CSS, there's a bunch of new stuff that was not at all covered. Flexbox, responsive CSS, properties like the position property and transform, those are all new. Bootstrap, you can see, is in green because, yes, everything is new, but it's all pretty much the same. But then some really big changes once we get to JavaScript. Things like even very basics of primitives and variables. That section now uses let and const. So even if you went through all the JavaScript content, I'm trying to single out, what you should go back and at least watch a video or two of. So certainly things like let and const, string template literals. Keep going down, for of loops. This whole section on leveling up our functions, things like the keyword this, block level scope, lexical scoping, function expressions, higher order functions, returning functions, try and catch, all of that stuff was lacking in the original course. So definitely check that section out. Same thing with the array callback method section. It covers a lot of important stuff. Pretty much none of it, aside from for each, was in the original version. So map, filter, sum, every, reduce, arrow function, set timeout, set interval, very important stuff going forward, worth your time. Unfortunately, this chunk right here, these 3 red sections that are all new, pretty much brand new content, not at all covered in the original course, they're a bit dense, but they're important. So you might want to take your time and not try and rush through them, but they are important there. Further down, there's a whole new section on new JavaScript features, new modern syntax, not at all mentioned or not at all covered in the original course. Another big change is that jQuery has been removed, and instead the DOM content has been expanded. So if you made it through the original DOM content, I would go back and just watch some of these sections. I call out particular things, for example, class list, or the last 4 videos in this section around creating new elements from scratch. 2 other critical sections that are new, asynchronous JavaScript, where I cover promises and async await, and then Ajax. 2 topics not at all in the original course, definitely worth your time. They're in red. When we get to the backend section, if you made it to that point in the past, in this new version, I no longer use Cloud9. Everything is done locally. So I call that out. But otherwise, things are pretty much the same. There's a new video or 2, a couple new topics, but nothing critical. Then we get to Node and Express. Things are pretty similar, but there are certain topics I call out, or I explain certain things are expanded, or there's a new exercise. But then really where things change is with databases. There's a lot of new content around Mongo and making queries and connecting to databases using fancy operators. That has been definitely significantly expanded, as has the Mongoose section, where I now cover things like virtual properties and validations and schema constraints, adding static methods, adding middleware. Further down, there's a new section on Express errors, new sections on cookies and the Express router, working with sessions, authentication from scratch. All of that is in red because it's new. It was barely covered. It was kind of touched upon in the original version of the course. So absolutely worth checking out if you finish the original version. And then lastly, YelpCamp is still in the course, but it's been completely redone. So a brand new app, all new code, nothing, no holdovers from the original course. And it's been expanded to include a lot of topics. Now, it's spread out through the course, but just to make it easier to follow in this migration guide, I've grouped it all together. And you can see a lot of it's pretty much the same, basic stuff, making basic routes and adding in, models and authentication. But then we get to some new features like image upload, adding maps with Mapbox and geocoding, adding a cluster map. We talk about security issues, cross-site scripting and Mongo injection, sanitizing HTML inputs. All of that is in red because it was not at all covered in the original course or the original version of YelpCamp. So a lot of stuff here. Worth your time. I would, honestly, if you finish the entire course, I would just go through from the beginning and just read through this outline, figure out, what's changed in each section, and then spend a couple of minutes going through those topics. And then when you get to some of the bigger things like, Flexbox, or the new sections on array callback methods, or Ajax, or asynchronous JavaScript, then really dive into those sections. If you're somebody who went halfway through the course, you got to JavaScript and then you stopped, or you were at JavaScript when I launched the update today, I would do the same thing. Use this outline to help you sort of act as a guide for what you should focus on. So this is going to be a bit of a process. Fortunately, the topics are pretty much the same. The order is roughly the same. There's just a lot more detail, a lot of more modern code and, updated stuff that wasn't present in the original course. So it could be worse, right? I could switch this completely to, I don't know, Java or Python or something, which would be a traumatic change. But with that said, it is a pretty significant overhaul. I mean, every single video is new. So take your time. There's going to be kinks and things that need to be worked out anyway. I wouldn't, rush through this in a matter of a couple of hours. And that's pretty much it. So good luck, everybody. I hope you enjoy the new content. Please be patient if there are any issues. Ask your questions on the discussion board. We are here to help, and good luck.